Welcome to a special episode of Issues to Impact, brought to you by the I Have Something to Say podcast team. This is where your hosts, Dr. Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel, Chris Majocha, and Samí Haiman-Marrero serve as a sounding board to tackle recurring issues, provide actionable solutions, and build a supportive community for changemakers that want to make a positive impact on society. By leveraging our collective expertise in business consulting, content creation, leadership development, and marketing, we empower founders, professionals, and leaders to face their challenges by sharing how we have overcome these very same obstacles ourselves. We're not here to just talk. We're here to drive real change by helping leaders address the issues holding them back from making an impact. Together, we can make a difference, tackling one issue at a time.
Welcome to another episode of Issues to Impact. And this one is going to be a doozy because, as you see, we have a guest, but they're incognito. So Sammy, Chris, and I may know the person behind the screen, but our audience won't. And really, it's about the issue. I think that's why we're having this, right, conversation. This person that we're referred to as Negative Nancy is bringing an issue, and they really want to have a real, raw, honest conversations without the audience getting caught up in the messenger, right? And so this is going to be pretty interesting. This is the first time we're doing an incognito guest. So what are your thoughts, Sammy?
I can't wait to dive right into it. I feel their pain because I've been there, and so yeah, just listen. Let's do this. Let's become that sounding board that can help perhaps offer up some options, so we can turn it from being a negative Nancy to a positive Paula.
Sounds like a plan. Should I present the issue? Let me present the issue and then we'll get into it. Negative Nancy will give you an opportunity to speak. But based on what you've shared with us, you own a business and you've really never been passionate about entrepreneurship. You feel that you are one of those individuals that are really good at following directions and may be better suited for a full-time position with benefits, but you have a talent or a gift that you were providing for fun or for free services. And really, it was the clients that you were working with that encouraged you to start this small business, right? So, with no business knowledge, but much experience, you went on this wild 4-year ride to try to see how you're going to work through starting a business, growing your business, but in that also how you were going to heal, which I think is an interesting dynamic when we look at the healing process of the entrepreneur as they try to embark on this entrepreneurial journey. So you said you've been faking it till you make it and it's not cutting it anymore. Your reputation for work ethic might be a little bit on shaky ground, right? Because of your passion or your lack of passion. And so you really are trying to figure out whether or not there's certain parts of your business you should delegate, or are there certain parts of your business you need to learn more about, or maybe you should just close this chapter altogether. So, Negative Nancy, anything that I have provided that you would like to add so our audience has context regarding this issue or for our conversation?
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely you gave a very in-depth synopsis of what I'm going through right now. A little bit of the emotional aspect is when you have a business and you started from scratch out of nothing, like you said in a previous episode, it's your baby. You don't want anybody to like say anything about it or mess with it. But it gets to a point now where it's no longer just imposter syndrome. It's like, can you really do what is required of you? And I'm asking myself now, is this something that I can really do, should really do, want to really do, instead of just drowning and having other people looking at me like, oh my gosh, I don't want to work with this person because they're not consistent, they're not this, they're not doing all the things they're supposed to do, they don't have anything organized. It's like, I know I can do a really good job if given the instructions. Maybe that's what I'm missing or not. Who knows? So hopefully we can figure that out together.
Mm-hmm. Chris, you want to chime in? I know you work with clients that have some of these issues.
Yeah, and honestly, I can even just say that just about 2 years ago, I moved from Orlando, Florida to Massachusetts as a small business owner, and also as at the time a dad of a 1-year-old, and making that big of a change. I had a lot of like local clientele, so I actually can empathize very much so in terms of the a kind of feeling that burnout. B, is it still worth it? To keep doing this. Is it something I want to do? And what is the leap of faith back into the working for the man world? What is that going to be like for me and my business? And I can just say from like my personal experience of doing this, where I did end up getting a full-time 9 to 5 job, and I sort of put my my business on the back burner for a little while, and just sort of like kind of recalibrated, felt out the corporate world with a steady paycheck for a little while. I am now kind of circling back and kind of have that breathing room with kind of almost like a fresh start or a fresh set of eyes to jump back into my entrepreneurial passions. I'm not saying that, again, that is the path for you, but I can just tell you from my experience, the leap of faith isn't that scary if you really do need to recalibrate. But I think we can, we'll get a little deeper into this episode, but I also have some tools in mind of how, if you even want to make that decision of going back to a corporate world or doing your own thing, of how just you can kind of do that through a couple of exercises. But we'll go from there. So I guess one question I would have for you is, when you are working on, the type of project that you do in your current line of work, or you get a new phone call or an opportunity to come in for a business or for a business opportunity, like what goes through your mind? What are you feeling when that happens? And like, is it anxiety? Is it happiness? Where are you with that?
It's kind of a little bit of both, more on the anxious side because I've always been raised to make sure that I am prepared. Never, you don't have to get ready if you're always ready. So when someone reaches out to me, it's like, okay, I need to put my best foot forward. I need to show that I'm an expert. I need to know all the things just in case someone gives me, like, throws a wrench into the situation. I need to be prepared. So it's a little bit of both, but I'm happy because it's a possible opportunity to make some money.
Money, money, money. Do you feel that the money is a stressor as to why you haven't made a definitive decision as to what your next step would be?
I feel that is one of the things that I struggle with a lot too, because I'm going from it being a hobby of mine where I didn't value what I do as something that should be paid for. I just did it for fun because I grew up where we did this for fun when we created high five spaces like I design and when we had MySpace and tagged and all these things, it was about making your site look the best, getting the music and the style. And we did that for fun. But now it's turned into a place for business, not just connection. So now everyone is trying to leverage that. And I'm trying to take the things that I feel like I was good at back then to make something out of it. Like maybe this is what, God is saying, hey, this is a gift that I gave to you. Now you understand that you can use it this way and it could be a lifestyle for you. Because I always said, after I stopped doing like part-time, because I was a part-time queen, where I was, you couldn't really get a full-time unless you knew somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody. It was hard to just get a full-time. Those jobs were really hard to get. And I just had part-times to make up to a full-time job. And when I got out to the mainland, I said, I'm not working for somebody else. I want whatever I end up doing to be something that I want to do, like something that, I'm in charge of or I own. So I've never gone back to the regular corporate world or working for somebody else. And like you said, Chris, like I always think about it like, is this the break that I need? Do I need to just not think about the business for like a little bit and actually get an opportunity to clear my mind? But then I go back to, you promised you weren't going to go back to a job. So that's where I've been.
Yeah. It's very challenging, right? Well, I just want to point out a couple of things. Most businesses, when they're starting, right? And starting is up to 5, 6 years, right? So you're in the midst of that, right? In the midst of those growing pains. So I'm just mentioning that to let you know that it's normal what
Mhm.
you're feeling. You're not a anomaly. There's nothing wrong with you. You know, this is actually part of the process, right? So
Oh,
that's
wait
number
out,
one.
Bart.
Yay, right? Let's celebrate that, right? You're not going loca. This is normal, okay? But I just wanted to point out that sometimes we get hung up trying to live up to what other people's definition of success is.
Mhm.
And I invite you, right, to, and I know this sounds corny. They always ask us to picture yourself in 10 years, in 20 years, whatever, right? It's like, what do you value for you? Pause and be selfish
Yeah.
for 1 nanosecond, because I wasn't when I started my business 16 years ago. And as a result of that, right, I'm paying the price for certain things, some certain decisions that I meant not at this point, not good or bad, because I'm good, right? We're good, we're stable, but I know we could have done so much better in certain areas had I paused for a moment and was selfish.
Mhm.
When I hear you say all these freebies and all these things that you've done, you need to stop that.
Yeah.
Like yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start there. But the first part is to really picture what for you a quality life is, right? Being able to meet your needs, but also some of your wants. Like, what are your wants? You know, be selfish, go there, right? Because sometimes we're raised to think of the other and to be modest, and, you know, and you really need to push yourself to create that picture for yourself, right? And so that way you can reverse engineer all this, like your decisions, and figure out, okay, well, so these are decisions that I've made, these are the things that please me. And again, it sounds very selfish, but passion is very much tied into reward and pleasure, right? And this feeling of satisfaction. So it might be like a ripping off a band-aid and painful, but you may have to dump half the stuff you're doing, because I understand that you're multi-talented, you're multi-disciplined, but even though you're good at certain things doesn't mean you have to do them. Like, I'm very good at writing, but I'm kind of over writing blogs, right? So I've delegated that, right? I review them, right? So I've learned through coaching, and here's Sholanda's been my coach, right? How to identify those parts of me that I'm really freaking amazing at, but they don't fill me with joy, right? So again, full picture down the line. What do you want, Nancy? What do you want, negative Nancy? Right? Your life to be like, so that way you can start planning towards that. Dump what doesn't serve you, and then hyper focus on the things that do. And now that might be committing to those lines of work, right, that you're currently doing as a business owner, and then building bandwidth to be able to grow, or looking for a job that really checks off all those boxes, and then still have the side hustle, because I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are my initial, that's my initial reaction, right, to this situation.
Yeah. If I could chime in, I think that I agree with Samí. Think of where you want to be, but I would also encourage you to be audacious in your thinking. You know,
Mhm.
the modesty, especially as women, no offense, Chris, but we, as women, we tend to try to be a little bit more practical in our dreaming. I would say think big, think beyond what you think is possible at this point in time because you're thinking out in the future. You have the time to build up to that, right? And then once you know what that audacious and fabulous life that you're trying to create would look like, to Samí's point, you work yourself back and then you say, okay, I'm here. This is where I want to be. This is the gap. Now, what are the steps I need to put in place to get there? Or what are the alternate routes that I can take to get there? Because sometimes we think of obtaining a goal as a freeway, a straight shot from point A to B. And with entrepreneurship, it's never a straight shot from A to B. There are a lot of detours. It's more of an obstacle course, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to get there. It just means that the experience or filling that gap looks probably much different than when you initially thought when you started this journey. So yeah, give yourself a little grace. You're 4 years in, you're learning, right? Many entrepreneurs go into business because they're passionate about something. And that's what I'm hearing from you. You're passionate about what you do. That's one part, but there's all these systems and processes that you have to be able to put in place to be able to support your business in delivering that passion point to your clients. And I think that's where a lot of people who start businesses really don't think about it as often because they're just so enamored with, I'm passionate about the work I'm doing. I want to be able to serve. I want to be able to do all these things. But there's a foundation that needs to be built to be able to support that.
Yeah, and as you say that, I think about when I started, I never had that thought process of, okay, I want to start a business. What am I going to do? It was basically, I was already doing this in a volunteering position, and people were like, do this for me. I'll pay you for it. And I was like, you want to give me money for this? Yes. Like, send me an invoice, send me this, and then I'm like, how am I gonna send them a fucking invoice? Where do I get that from? Do I make that on Word, Excel? Like, where do I get? So I started researching so many different things, like how to get an invoice. And then they were like talking about websites. I'm like, I have to make a website? Website was not even something that was in the works for me. So I never made one, but other people were like, can you? I know you do designs, but can you do a website? It's like, let me see. So a lot of people would give me questions and I would always answer. I'd never say no. I'll always say, let me find out if I can. Because my grandmother said anything you put your mind to, you can do it, right? So I went and researched, and then that's how I learned about making websites. And I was like, let me take a stab at it. Because in my mind, I'm like, if it's not going to be a good website, if it doesn't come out good, hey, I wasn't even expecting to get paid for this. This is experimenting for me. But 4 years in, it's became this big monster of, you need to have a website. Creates website, does nothing with it really other than send those invoices. Then you need to create this, you need to create that. How are you doing this? And then when people don't pay me, what's your system for people to pay you? Do you have a funnel? Do you have this? And here comes social media now in the space every minute telling you, if you're not doing this, let me tell you how to do it. Also, another thing I want to add, in my field of work, we had actual thoughts going into what we were doing. Now it's such a speed race that as a human creating, that's what I loved, being able to create. I'm not allowed to create anymore because my human brain doesn't move as fast as AI. So now I have to turn my business into a robotic business. And I think that's another thing too, that's like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to put myself in a position where I'm no longer giving a piece of me to create something? I'm typing it into ChatGPT to create it for me because I need 30 pieces of content within 5 minutes.
Right.
Negative Nancy, question for you. When you are, I guess, in all the jobs that you've taken on and all the work that you do, what would you say is still to this day, if anything, is still like your favorite thing, that when that type of project comes in, that you're like, oh yes, like I get to do this again?
It's really just anything that I get to create. And when I say create, I've done singing, songwriting, modeling, dancing, writing scripts for people, writing letters for people, anything where I have to use my mind, because I always say that if you want to be inside of my mind, you have to look at the show Out of the Box from Disney, because that's how I think. I just go wild with my ideas, and then I need to like ring in some, pull in some, so I could, make it worthwhile. But anything, there's no limit. There's nothing that I love more than the other. It's just the mere fact that my creations help people, like to create impact with my creations. That's my passion.
So I guess just as a quick follow-up to that, and I think you might have just answered that, but as far as your favorite thing when a client sees your work, is it that you're happy that they got something that they can use for their business, or are you more happy when they kind of acknowledge the creative aspect that you put into it?
The first one, I think, is solving their problem.
Okay.
Seeing that they no longer have that stressor, they no longer have that worry of how am I going to make this work. And I was the person to be able to provide something from myself that filled in that blank for them. And now they don't have to worry about it no more. They could just be their awesome self.
And you do that through these creative outlets what it sounded to me, they're mostly rooted in like the performing arts, in that kind of creative space.
Yes.
So I would suggest to create a list of the pain points or the stressors or the issues that you can solve that are directly tied.
I said money, making sure they pay me on time.
But that you're able to solve for them, for the clients, right? So the thing is, I think that a good exercise for you would be to really articulate your value proposition, right? What you bring to the table to these prospective clients, more in line with these things, right? Like the performing arts, writing scripts, writing letters and speeches, the dance movement, right? Choreography is what I'm hearing. I'm not sure. I'm trying to, see here exactly what these disciplines are in the arts, right? Because you do have the digital and the design and social media, because you had to learn it, right? Like the website development and all of that, but it doesn't tickle you. That doesn't, it seems to me. It's this other, I could hear it in your voice, in the tone of your voice when you talk about dance and theater and performances and script writing and all of that. And so what I want to suggest is that this is another exercise that you might want to, really work on, is to developing that value proposition. Like, what are those client stressors? What are those areas, or what kind of problems, right? Organizations in the private sector, in the nonprofit sector, and in the government sectors have that could benefit from an interventionist, like a creator interventionist, right? Like you, that could create programming and out of the box, right? Interventions, really creative interventions to solve, right? And so I don't know if you're able to share an example of something in the creative space, right? That was a problem or a stressor for the client that they came to you to fix it. You created something and then they were like, oh, that was fantastic, Negative Nancy. Thank you. Send me the check. And then I'll talk to you about the invoicing and the and the pay, because that's listen.
Another.
I'm dealing with that 16 years into it. So, but anyway, so could you share with us a little bit of insight on what like share with us a situation that you solved a problem and it brought you joy and you got paid?
Well, the part, see, I ought to give you an example, but I didn't get paid for that one. You threw me for a loop there. So I feel like most of my clients are kind of in the same boat of wants and needs, in terms of wanting to have a business, but don't have everything they need, like a logo, website, social media, all of these things, or a graphic designer. And they all come to me with the same want and need for it. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I have no ideas, campaigns, and I've helped them with brainstorming. And I feel like that's one of my strengths, brainstorming and creating plans and ideas of what we can do. But then I'm also the one that has to implement the plans. I'm like, damn. But one of the things that I was gonna mention that I did not get paid for that kind of falls in line more with that description. Uh, there's a community that we only get to see each other one time a year, and it's a big community. It's one of the companies that I work for, and we are in over 30 cities in the continental US. But there was a need for people to connect because what we do is kind of like build a community and help people gain back their confidence. And there's a lot of people that aren't able to have people there for them and to support them. And the CEO of the company decided they were going to put out these notes, and everybody would get them and read them. So it was like a note you get for the week. And I was like, man, these notes are so good. I just want to talk to everybody. Like, I want to see each other. I want to see everybody's face again. What can I do? And then I reach out to the CEO. I was like, hey, there's this idea. And the CEO is the type of person that's like, that's awesome. Leaves you there and sees what you're going to do with it. I was like, you got the right person. So I decided to reach out to some people. And I was like, hey, we're meeting up on Zoom at this time, and we're going to call it this, and we're going to talk about these things. We're going to do it like weekly and see how we feel about it. And people were like, oh my gosh, like after the first one, they were like, oh my gosh, this is this thing that I didn't know I needed. And then they come every week, and it's like, I feel so good. And they talk about, oh my gosh, she created this. It's like, no. It's we all came together. I was just the person to network and make it happen. And another situation is another networking opportunity that I created where there were no outings being planned. And I took it upon myself to create a community, like a little committee that we can get together and plan these ideas and execute them. And we've been running for a year and change now, but it's also another thing I don't get paid for. But I just enjoy it because it's like, they know I'm doing it because I'm not expecting anything from it. So they accept it more. It feels more genuine for me when it's just me giving. Like I fill my cup that way. And a lot of people watch me funny, like, you fill your cup by emptying your cup? That makes no sense. But some people I think are like that. I think those people exist, and I'm one of them, unfortunately.
Well, not unfortunately. I think that that's a way to also build a reputation for someone that can get things done and done right. And you also build a network that way, right? That you can lean in. The thing is, you need to know when to not pull back, but more start establishing safe boundaries of engagement and healthy boundaries of engagement, and also establish as part of that exercise with the value proposition that I was suggesting before, what it's worth.
Yeah.
And so with a little bit of research, I think that you can really tie both things together, and it would serve you well for both continuing as a business owner and also working in the corporate sector, because a lot of people are looking. I mean, a lot of companies are now really in need of, people that have soft skills. And it sounds to me like you have really amazing soft skills with engagement, right? Customer service, creating safe spaces, design thinking, right? With the ideation and the brainstorming and stuff like that. So perhaps it's just a matter of also figuring out what's the right terminology to describe exactly your strong suits, right? And presenting it in a way that can serve you on both ends, right? I gotta be honest with you. I'm at a crossroads because I'm like now I'm like self-reflecting, and I'm listening to you because I'm gonna tell you, at least twice a year for the last 5 years, I've had like a mental breakdown twice a year. I've told Xaulanda and Chris this. It normally happens in November and in April, where I just lose my shit. Right. You know, where I'm like, this is nonsense. I'm over it. Right. I'm ready to throw in the towel. So in that way too, been there, done that. Like that's normal. Right. And so I've often said, I'm just going to go back, get myself a full-time job and screw it. But I like my freedom as an entrepreneur. So what I've been thinking lately, and I've talked to Xaulanda about this too, right? And we're actually exploring some things, right? Is to pivot the business. Not that we're going to stop doing what we're doing, but it's really own those things that we're passionate about and that we really enjoy and that we're like freaking badass at, right? That we could do it with our eyes closed and shift into more of a consulting role, because there's this thing after the pandemic that's called the white collar gig economy, right? Which are professionals that have corporate experience or that know how to navigate the corporate sector that are not fully employed by corporations, but that can be like fractional chief marketing officers or fractional, operation officers or fractional. And so then you're leaning in on your strengths, right? But you're not working full time for a corporation. Or you still can, because if you start as, this happened to a friend of mine. She started as a consultant recently, as a consultant with a major nonprofit, not gonna name the name. And they were like, oh, we need you. After like 6 months, they're like, no, we need you full time, and she was like a fractional operations officer. And they brought her in, and she was killing it, but she couldn't stand the CEO of the company was different, right? The relationship was different when he was a client versus her as an employee. So she wound up quitting after like 2-3 months, and she's back at what she was doing. And so that's okay too, right? So where I'm getting at is, let's call you Positive Paula, right? Let's look at the bright side, is that you actually have a lot of options in front of you, right? And I want to say, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
31.
Okay. So, because if you're like an old broad like me, I'm 54, then I'd be like, hey, you're screwed. But you're not, because I'm pivoting too. But I'm pivoting, right? So I'm only sharing this so you understand that I'm thinking about pivoting. Have I done it yet? No. Am I exploring it? Yes. And in the meantime, am I doing shit I'm not really crazy about? Yeah. But, it pays the bill, and I know it's temporary. All of that, and I know it's temporary, right? So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I really think that you really need to know what you're worth in the things that you're doing, and do a little research on pricing, right? And do a little research on how to best describe the things you're passionate about in like corporate talk, so you could sell it, right? But let it be authentic too. Let it be digestible, not so convoluted that people they're like, okay, what did she just say, right? But so that way you can really say, this is what I do, and this are the situations that I can help resolve and fix.
So then, question for you: the business that I struggle with now is basically that design aspect, that design and graphic design, all those things, website, all of that. That's the part that I'm wondering if I should walk away from. The others are flourishing. They're great. I love those. But are you saying maybe there's a possibility that I can morph all of those things into one?
And dump whatever doesn't please you. I mean, again, that's always an option, right? Just completely dump. It's like, for example, people ask me, they say, do you guys do public relations? We could do it. Am I crazy about it? No. And I'm upfront about it, right?
Yeah.
We used to do it more, I
Mhm.
just don't like it, right? And so we dumped it altogether. And so and then that's okay too, right? Right now, we used to work with clients in the packaged goods and products, like selling products and stuff, right? We don't do that anymore. All of our clients are purpose driven, cause based clients, and it's amazing, right? And
Yeah.
we love that because now we found our lane, right? And so, and we pivoted that. When was it, Xaulanda? Like maybe 6 years ago,
Yep.
more or less.
Yep.
Yeah. Like 10 years into the business is when we started dumping, and we've broken up with clients. Well, we sound like a lot of people. Xaulanda has. I'm like, I can't stand this son of a bitch. Can you fire him? And then
Oh, God.
and she does the dirty work, right? But everything's on the table, negative Nancy. Everything is on the table. You choose.
I
And
have
again,
to
it has to be centered in what brings you joy and what meets your end goal. That's it.
Okay, so we're back to Paula, Positive Paula. Now,
Positive Paula, I have two books I'd like to recommend just based off this conversation. One is called Blue Ocean Strategy, which is basically identifying potential gaps or basically underserved areas in a marketplace. And then the second one is called Built to Sell. And that is more about, especially like a service-based business like design. It's learning how to productize that, with the ultimate goal of being able to sell your business someday. But I think with all, kind of like you were asking, like Samí, there is it possible to morph all those things into one package? And I think that is because you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably getting those different aspects of the website services, the design services, social media as kind of like one-offs. They're coming in, probably not as a full package, but if you are passionate about creating all those things and being able to really take a brand, from having no logo, no look and feel, no design aspects, no social media assets, and you can put that into a package where you can say for a discount you pay up front or you pay over the next 6 to 12 months at a certain rate, and basically they are getting everything within that package as sort of like a launch package for their business. And I think that would potentially be something that makes it more consistent for you to get paid. And especially if you do those more retainer based things, it allows you to figure out other things because you have that comfortable paycheck, but you also are getting to dip your toe in all these different aspects. But it's just putting it together and saying, look, your business probably needs these things, so here's the package that is going to get it done. And it allows you to not worry about running from each different aspect to another, because like, hey, okay, on week 4 of me working with this client, I'm going to start building their website. On week 5, I'm going to start doing this, and it just maybe would help kind of like smooth out the bumps in your journey a little bit.
Yeah, especially the pressure cooker.
Right.
Yeah.
We need it done yesterday.
Just to piggyback off of what Chris just said and Samí just said, I think, as entrepreneurs, there's a lot we can do, right? But you got to figure out what you're good at, what's easy for you, where your sweet spot is, and where you have the capacity to make that money, right? Because at the end of the day, whether you go through the entrepreneurship route or you go back into corporate or you get a full-time job, we have our basic needs that we need to get covered, right? We have things that we want to accomplish, our needs and our wants. And sometimes they're very much tied to that financial payoff, right? So really figuring out what's your sweet spot and what your pricing is going to be important. But piggybacking on what Chris was saying, I think it's important to think of it from the perspective of when you went into business, there were certain things you didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, but you're an expert in this particular creative lane. And you know what a small business owner is going to need in order to take their brand or their image or their key messaging from point A to point B. So then build it out for them and say, if you want to take your business from here to here, these are the things that you need. This is the package. And to Chris's point, break it out where it makes it feasible for them to do a monthly payment plan. And then, you have that continuous income coming in over time, as opposed to one project. And then you're having to go back into that, trying to get a new client, trying to build back your pipeline, you know, trying to break it out over time is something that I've had to consider doing in my business, because I am a commitment phobic in relationships, in everything. I'm commitment phobic. And when it came to my business, I prefer to do 1 month projects, 1 to 3 month projects, and then I'll decide if I'm going to recommit for another 3 months. But what I ended up doing was spending a lot of my time trying to build my pipeline, because when a project was done, if I didn't have a client lined up, I had to go back and start all over again. And then I'm those couple months without any income coming in, right? You got to kind of figure out what that business structure would look like for you to have that consistent income coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll even really heavily consider the consulting part, because it's something I thought about in the future, like my end game, that I would just be the one that they need information from, and I just sit there and talk, because if it's one thing I can do is that. Definitely do that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's building up to that, right? It's just so really figuring out those focus areas, defining them, understanding how it helps solve their problems, right? So that way, and you can have the examples of the free work that you've done too, right? To demonstrate case studies and say, well, this is an example. These people were right, and this is where we landed. I love the idea of the packages. We have that too. And sometimes we submit the packages because they need a logo, a website, social media, or like we call it the foundational marketing assets. You could use that, right? And Chris and I have worked on packages, and Xaulanda and I have worked on packages for different things, right? And so it's a finite thing, but imagine, just for argument's sake, right? $100. It's much more than that. And whatever you price it at, add another 50%, because if you bump into a client that's a pain in the ass, right? So don't ever shortchange yourself, right? The worst that can happen is that they say, too much, right? And so then you have that wiggle room for negotiation. But, in an idea, so we have this package, right? And but we do other things too, right? But we have that because if someone needs it, it's a one-off, right? But you could totally make a really good living, right? Creating a package. And then, like, if you have 5 of those a month, right? As a solopreneur, and you price them right. Nita, right is right. Your expertise from ideation through the entire process until you establish your persona, your brand, the logo. Then from that, you go into the website, the copywriting, which I hear you love to write, and creative, right? And all of that. You can help them write blogs. There's so much that can be added to that. You can say, okay, we're going to start with 3 blogs. And from the blogs, then we do the social media posts. And it could be a nice package, right? That will take you for 4 to 6 months. You could try it out, and if they like it, then they can do more. But if you have those 5 to 6 and then keep on growing, right? Consistent. And then it comes to a point where you can't do it on then you hire a copywriter. Hire somebody else that's badass, right?
Yeah.
And like that, and that's how you can build bandwidth and also reputation. And then start, if you're going to do any freebies, do speaking engagements where you're invited as the subject matter expert to speak for nonprofit organizations, so about as a marketing and a content creation, right, expert. And then once you have 2 or 3 of those under your belt, you can say, I've spoken here at the university here, at this nonprofit, whatever. And then all of a sudden you put a price tag on that shit too, right? For speaking engagements. I was late to that. I've just started getting paid now in my 50s for that, right? And I should have been getting paid earlier, You see, so I blew at least a decade of getting paid, right, for speaking engagement, but that's okay. It's never too late. I'm pivoting
Yeah.
towards that too now. So I'm sharing what I'm actually doing now. Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Gems have been dropped.
I'll just add two more things real quick onto that. One more layer that might be worth testing out, especially if like the performing arts space is kind of really where your heart is, would be to niche down and to direct your messaging towards that. So everything we're saying here is, possible package or offerings, but saying, for the performing arts space and really showing that you have that experience. Because it's just it's closer to like, it's kind of like a golf term, but it's like it's closer to the hole for somebody to get there. It's polarizing to somebody who doesn't fit that space, but it would be bringing more of the clients that you actually want to work with. And then the second point I just wanted to bring up, because it was you mentioned at the beginning that it's competition for you at the moment is AI. For this specific process of kind of figuring out what the pain points are, what the messaging should be, what kind of services are needed, like using ChatGPT to kind of brain dump into that and just, let your brain spin off into what kind of questions could I ask, what would my audience be asking, etc. You'd be surprised of what you can kind of put together as like a little like dossier on what your new business or your passionate project should and could be.
Yeah.
Well, with all this information, maybe one day I'll actually claim my business face to face. No one knows. For 4 years, no one knows who I am behind my logo.
Quick question for you, because we've been talking about really practical business strategies and ideas and tactics that you can implement. But one of the things that you shared in your guest survey that you completed was the healing process.
Yeah.
Did you want to share a little bit about that? Because I think as entrepreneurs, because our business comes from us, the health of our business is an indication of how healthy we are. Sammy talked about having mental breakdown twice a year, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It isn't. It's definitely a roller coaster. We experience a lot of imposter syndrome. We experience a lot of, can we do this, right? That negative Nancy part. And then when things are going really, really well, we're definitely Positive Paula. Like, we are rocking it. We're going to get this shit done. We're going to add these new clients, but it's being able to make sure that you're doing well through that process. So I just wanted to see if there's anything that we can help you in that healing process or give you suggestions on how we've kind of navigated that.
Sure. So before, when I first came out to the mainland and I started trying to figure out who I was, because I was at ground zero, starting from scratch, figuring out the type of person I wanted to be in this life. And I could kind of say that when you become an entrepreneur, your childhood trauma sits right in front of you, like, oh yeah, we gonna do this? Let me see. And you just start thinking about all the things that you've been told as a kid, like it has to be all A's. If you got B, why didn't you get an A? What were the things you got wrong rather than what were the things you got correct? And you kind of apply that to yourself now, because you don't have a boss over your shoulder telling you, I need this done, I need that done, and I need it done this way. Now you have to tell yourself. So you don't hear your voice yet. You're hearing your childhood trauma voice who's reiterating these things to you, and now you're trying to live up to that. And that was one of the things that I was healing, because it made me like a people pleaser. So I always wanted to make sure that whatever the situation is, maybe I got the shitty end of the stick, but at least the other person was happy with what they got. And then I can move forward. So I've been healing that part of me where it's like, no, I'm going to do the things that I want to do. So that's why I'm now like, I've been questioning it for a while on the business aspect, but now it's like, okay, you know better. Let's do better. and
Mm-hmm.
let's figure out what exactly we're going to do. And
Mm-hmm.
then let's fuck it up. Let's do it.
Well, you definitely seem to have gone through a transition from negative Nancy to positive Paula. And,
Right.
entrepreneurship's a journey, life's a journey. We're all learning and growing. I mean, Sammy shared, she's been in business for 16 years. I've been in business for 4 years. My first business did well, then failed. And then I had to take a step back and I tried again in 2020 of all freaking years to start a business, right? In the
That's
middle of COVID. So it's a process, right? We learn through that process. And to your point, when you know better, you do better, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
really a cool thing.
All
Yeah.
right. So I think we will probably just recap for the listening audience because we talked about a lot of stuff. We covered a lot of material, right?
Yeah.
So we started out with telling you think about the life you want,
Mhm.
right? And be selfish and be audacious and be big in your thinking. The saying that says if you shoot for the moon and you don't make it, at least you fall among the stars. It's
Yeah.
still going to have an awesome outcome in the end, right? So determine what those gaps are, what your alternatives are to making that life happen and go for it, right? What are you passionate about? What are those projects that you absolutely love? You love that creative space. So play in that space with your business because if you love what you do, you provide better service to your clients, you provide better products to your clients. And that leads us to what are the issues are you trying to solve? And who are the clients you're trying to serve, right? So really understanding what your value proposition is, not only in the offerings that you provide, but in the cost associated with the services that you're providing. So pricing is a whole nother topic that came up in our last episode with another guest. So that's something we're probably going to dive into as a dedicated episode in the future. Because pricing is always how do you price your services, right? Comparative to what other people are doing.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to make sure to reiterate for those who may have missed it, Chris suggested two really good books, Blue Ocean Strategy and Built to Sell, as resources for you to tap into. Create a package, create those packages, right? And see how that works so that you can have that consistent income coming in over time. And hopefully you build clients to be able to then grow the business. And then you bring in other people to help you when you've met your capacity as a solo entrepreneur. Did I miss anything, guys?
No, and the for the healing process,
Mhm.
I discovered that taking a break is needed. And
Yeah.
when I say take a break, it's like it could be a staycation. It doesn't have to be fancy and expensive. But where I'm getting at is it's okay to unplug. The world's not gonna end. And I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that, right? And the thing is we're constantly go, go, go because of the PTSD, girl.
Mm.
When you were talking about the straight A's and about and the part about being with me it's being broke because I've known what it is to be broke like broke, right, and almost losing the house and the whole thing. And so you have that like there, it's
Mm.
always there, right, that PTSD in the back. So it's ignoring it, quite frankly, and unplugging and just taking time to have fun, to be with family, with friends, and just unplug. Close the computer.
Ooh.
Just say, I need a moment. Yes. And
Yeah.
that's it. Me personally, I'll give you an example. Something happened over the weekend and I canceled all my meetings for today, except for this recording,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for tomorrow, because I need to be present, right? With a dear friend who's like family. So
Mm-hmm.
where I'm getting at is it's okay. The world's not going to end. The clients will have to wait another 24 hours. It's just not going to happen tomorrow. And
Right.
that's okay. Right. And so it's again establishing healthy boundaries of engagement, right? So you don't feel like you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Right. So then I did that this spring and I didn't have, for the first time in 6 years, I didn't have a meltdown in April.
Hey.
You see, I wanted to share that because part of healing is protecting yourself too,
Yeah.
right? It's just being proactive and avoiding that meltdown. And it's
Yeah.
possible. Okay. So,
And then,
This will be the first, if I take a vacation, it will be the first one in the 4 years since I started this business.
You see?
So,
Take it. Just
Take
do
it.
it. Don't think about it. Pause. And when you get back, you'll see the work will be there. And yeah, it'll take you a week and a half, 2 weeks to catch up. But so
it'll be refreshed.
you will be refreshed. Yes. And you'll be more creative.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of the healing. You heal when you take a freaking break.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
and I'll just add, I'm going to add a third book here because good things come in threes to wrap something up here.
Bring it on.
A book called The 12-Week Year. And I bring this up both for professional and for personal, self-help reasons as well. Is basically what it does is it allows you to schedule out and kind of goal set for 12 weeks at a time, so a quarter at a time. But basically to be audacious in your goal setting, but by doing it at in these smaller increments, it's more top of mind, so it's more bound to get done. But it also gets broken down from the 12 weeks to every 4 weeks as the month, and then every week, and then every day. But to set just somewhere between like 3 to 5 goals to start. 2 or 3 as business goals, and then 2 or 3 of, kind of like personal goals. So, one of them could be in, 12 weeks, I want to have saved up enough to give myself a vacation, to take a weekend off. In addition to a goal of like, hey, I want to try making a package. So my goal is to, at the end of this 12 weeks, have a package, built, ready to go, ready to sell with contacts, to send it to be able to launch. And then you kind of measure that along the way, and then you create your next 12 weeks. But at least for me, I kind of like an ADD person. You see the bright shiny light, and I as an entrepreneur, you're by yourself, so you have a tendency to go down rabbit holes sometimes. And by having this structured thing that I can go back to, even multiple times a day to be like, all right, am I on track for where I need to go? Did my last week measurement, was it successful? Do I need to make up more this week? And then it also kind of buffers in time for, for life to happen. And understanding that, some weeks just aren't going to happen the way you plan them. But I think, at least for me, it was very helpful to kind of break those things down. And like if one of my goals, again, is to like save up for a vacation, or to say, every week I'm going to take like 3 walks with my dog during like lunch or what have you. It's just one of those things that you're kind of like checking off on a task, as opposed to it just floating around, in the ether, in your head. And oftentimes, especially the self-help things, get cannibalized by the business tasks, and you're like, oh, well, I was going to go out for a walk, but I can't because this is happening. But when you kind of have it written out like that, it's like, no, this is one of my to-dos today, so I'm going to get out and do it. And so that's just my third and final book for this episode.
I love that.
Yeah. If I could jump in and give one last tip as you were talking, Chris, one of the things that my business partner, who happens to be my daughter, and I implemented this year is at the end of each month, we separately sit down and we write down the highlight moments or the small celebrations for the month. And then we get together and we share it. And sometimes there's things that were highlights for her that I experienced that I didn't think of as a highlight. But it just takes that whole positive spin, because as entrepreneurs, we tend to keep our head down. We're frustrated because of things that didn't get done. And sometimes we lose sight on all the wonderful things that are happening around us as we're accomplishing what it is that we've set out to do. So that was another tip that I wanted to share.
We could all be a little bit negative Nancy, but now we're all positive Paula.
I know. We just made a complete conversion when we talked about your issues from negative Nancy to positive Paula.
Yeah.
Listen, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and open with us. I think we've definitely taken this episode of Issues to Impact to a completely different level, a little unexpected with the incognito.
Definitely.
But still fruitful, and hopefully people walked away with a lot of golden nuggets that they can apply in their day-to-day lives as they continue their journey, whether in business and work or in life.
Yes, but thank you so much, each of you, because I couldn't afford a conversation like this if I had to. This was so much, like a lot of information, and I'm actually really excited to start that brainstorming, like trying to figure out, be a in what did you call it, Sammy? Interventionalist.
Yes, a creative interventionalist.
Yeah.
That stuck with
You
me.
know, yes. Go for it, mama. You can do it. And you know what? And then when you figure it out and your business is like skyrocketing, come
Yes.
back, okay? Positive Paula, we'll have you back. Yeah?
Well, the names don't change. It's gonna be my real name next time.
Oh,
Great.
remove the veil. We're all
Yes.
Okay, well, have a great evening and rest of the week, okay?
You
We
too.
can't
Thank you
wait
so
to
much.
hear the wonderful things that you're doing, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty, take care.
Bye-bye.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of Issues to Impact on the I Have Something to Say podcast. I hope you found our discussion today both valuable and inspiring. Remember, at Issues to Impact, we're dedicated to turning challenges into opportunities and supporting you and making a real difference in your community. If you have a challenge you're facing, we invite you to be a guest on our show. Reach out to us and let us be your expert sounding board. Together, we can find solutions and drive meaningful change. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media and join our community of passionate changemakers. Stay connected, stay inspired, and let's continue to make an impact, tackling one issue at a time. Thank you for listening.